Have you ever found yourself in a season where life feels less like a carefully plotted journey and maybe more like a swirling vortex? Maybe beautiful, maybe bewildering, but definitely chaotic.
Oh, absolutely. One moment you think you're navigating okay, and the next.
Right. A rogue wave hits and suddenly everything just feels completely out of your control. We've all been there, haven't we?
Definitely. Those unpredictable
Yeah.
twists, the seemingly random encounters, the detours you just didn't see coming.
But what if beneath all that seeming disorder, there's actually an intricate design? Maybe a divine hand at work, orchestrating every single twist and turn, weaving purpose out of what looks like, well, pure chance.
That's a powerful thought. That there's an order hidden in the chaos.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into exactly that concept, one that promises to reframe how you see not just your own life, but the broader world around you, God's orchestration.
It's such a fascinating idea. How an unseen hand takes what often appears to be total disorder and meticulously weaves it into profound purpose.
Exactly, especially when it comes to spiritual breakthroughs and, the sometimes explosive growth of communities and movements.
And that's our mission for this deep dive,
Yeah.
right? To really dig into this.
Yes, our mission is crystal clear. We're extracting powerful, often surprising insights from a stack of incredible sources. We've got some really in-depth sermon notes, a compelling theological paper, and actually a full sermon transcript, too.
So bringing together different perspectives on this central theme.
Right. And together they paint this vivid, almost undeniable picture of God's intentional design, even in what often seem like purely random, disconnected events.
And the hope is listeners walk away with something tangible.
Absolutely. You'll walk away with some truly eye-opening facts and genuinely practical takeaways that honestly could shift your perspective. This isn't just going to be an academic discussion. Think of it more as a strategic shortcut, maybe.
A shortcut to understanding a pretty profound concept.
Exactly, a concept with immediate real-world relevance for all of us. So yeah, settle in for what I think will be a fascinating and hopefully truly illuminating conversation.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it, how often we might attribute things in our lives to just pure coincidence.
Right.
When actually,
Or maybe it's not coincidence at all.
right, when these sources we're looking at reveal this intricate divine design at play, they really underscore a profound intentionality behind moments we might otherwise just dismiss.
Okay, let's unearth this then. The absolute cornerstone for understanding God's orchestration, this incredible idea of divine choreography, it really lies in an ancient yet astonishingly relevant biblical narrative. I'm talking about the story of Peter and Cornelius.
Ah, yes, Acts 10 and 11. Foundational.
It really is. This isn't just some old tale from a distant past. It's practically a living blueprint for how God continues to work even today. It sort of lays out a pattern of unexpected connections and, frankly, radical transformation.
And one compelling aspect that stands out immediately in that narrative, Acts 10 and 11, is how perfectly it illustrates two individuals. Seemingly disparate in every possible way.
Totally different worlds.
Exactly.
Right.
Being brought together by precise divine design. And this convergence, it directly challenged deeply ingrained preconceptions, not just for them personally,
But for everyone around them, too.
right, for the entire early Christian movement, really. It ultimately expanded the very reach of faith in a way that honestly had previously been almost unimaginable.
Okay, so let's start with Cornelius. Who was this guy?
Well, Cornelius was a Roman centurion. So a man of significant authority, respect within the Roman army, and also in his community there in Caesarea.
Right. And the sources paint a pretty clear picture of him. He's described as a devout man who feared God with all his household.
Which is interesting for a Roman officer.
Very. Gave alms generously to the people and prayed continually to God. This wasn't just a casual interest for him.
No, it was clearly a deeply ingrained spiritual practice that defined him.
And what's truly significant about Cornelius, as you hinted, is precisely his Gentile background. He wasn't Jewish.
Right. And yet he harbored this profound, almost palpable, deep spiritual hunger. This hunger, this continuous posture of seeking God, of giving generously.
Yeah.
That is what set the stage for a precisely timed divine appointment.
Like his heart was prepared ground.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That God often finds fertile ground in the most unexpected places, frequently beyond the conventional boundaries or expectations we might put on where spiritual interests should arise.
Yeah, Cornelius represented the very people many in the early church probably thought were, outside God's immediate focus.
Precisely. And then comes the appointment itself.
And his divine appointment arrived with, Well, dramatic clarity. Around 3 p.m., while he's praying, he has this vivid vision. An angel appears, calls him by name.
Which must have been startling, to say the least.
Absolutely, and delivers this astonishing message. Cornelius, your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before God. Then the angel gives him incredibly specific instructions.
Yeah, the detail's amazing.
Send men to Joppa, find a guy named Simon Peter, who's lodging with another Simon, Simon the Tanner, down by the sea. I mean, imagine the specificity.
Not just the city, but the name, the host's name, even the host's occupation, a tanner, which itself was significant for a devout Jew to be staying with. Tanning was considered an unclean trade.
Right, so the message itself is layered with challenges to the norm.
Which really prompts a vital question for us, doesn't it? How often do we truly recognize and then respond to such clear or maybe even subtle divine leading in our own lives?
Especially when it pushes us out of our comfort zone.
Exactly. Especially when it challenges our comfort, our logic, maybe our pre-existing plans.
Mm.
Cornelius' response here is just a masterclass in immediate, unquestioning obedience.
He didn't argue, didn't ask for clarification.
Nope, he didn't deliberate, didn't question the angel's identity, or the, let's face it, strange request to send for a Jew staying in a tanner's house. He just called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier.
And sent them right away.
Without delay. This decisive action, this sort of complete trust, it really sets the tone for how maybe we are called to respond when God orchestrates things.
Okay, so that's Cornelius, poised and obedient. Now, let's shift to Peter's side of this divinely choreographed encounter.
Peter, a very different character in many ways.
Totally. Peter, as our sources emphasize, was a pillar of the early church. And as one source puts it, as Jewish as you can be Jewish. I mean, that says it all.
It really does. For someone like Peter, raised in the strictest traditions of the Mosaic Law, the idea of entering a Gentile home, well, it wasn't just impolite.
It was unthinkable, a violation.
A profound spiritual defilement, according to the understanding at the time. It was seen as violating centuries of Old Testament laws about purity, about separation, that literally defined his people, his identity.
So this was a barrier as thick and as high as any physical wall could be.
Absolutely. And Peter's situation perfectly highlights the profound problem God needed to address before his broader plan could unfold. Peter's deeply ingrained traditions, his cultural conditioning,
They would naturally stop him.
they would absolutely prevent him from even stepping foot into Cornelius' house, let alone sharing the gospel message with uncircumcised Gentiles.
So God had to intervene with Peter, too.
Yes, God, in his meticulous wisdom, had to prepare the way for Peter. He knew Peter's heart, his history, his deeply held beliefs.
It wasn't like Peter was being rebellious initially.
Not at all. It was a fundamental clash between this new divine revelation, God's expansive vision for the Gentiles, and the centuries of cultural and religious conditioning that had shaped Peter's entire worldview. God had to work through Peter's understanding to expand it.
So how did God prepare him? Also a vision.
Yes, and equally dramatic, and frankly, probably quite unsettling for Peter. The very next day, while Cornelius' men are actually on their way.
Wow, the timing again?
Incredible, isn't it? Peter was on a housetop in Joppa, around noon, feeling incredibly hungry. He falls into a trance and has his own vivid vision.
What did he see?
He saw heavens opened and something like a great sheet descending. And in it were all kinds of animals and reptiles and birds of the air.
Oh.
Now, these weren't just any animals. They were explicitly considered unclean by Jewish dietary law, strictly forbidden to eat. Stuff Peter would never have touched his entire life.
And then God tells him.
This is where God's command becomes this direct, unmistakable challenge to Peter's core identity and understanding. Rise, Peter, kill and eat.
Whoa. Kill and eat unclean animals.
Exactly. And Peter's immediate visceral refusal. By no means, Lord, for I've never eaten anything that is common or unclean. It just perfectly captures the depth of his adherence to tradition, and frankly, the shock of this divine instruction.
I can only imagine.
But the divine correction wasn't just clear, it was repeated. Not once, not twice.
3 times. The text says 3 times.
3 times. What God has made clean, do not call common. That repetition isn't accidental. It underscores the profound urgency and the immense importance of the lesson Peter needed to internalize right then and there.
It wasn't just about lunch.
Not at all. It wasn't just about food. It was fundamentally about people. It was about God, declaring that the old divisions, the old purity codes that separated Jew from Gentile, were now being transcended by a new, radical inclusivity in Christ.
So just try to imagine Peter's internal struggle here. He's grappling with what one source calls 1,000 years worth of traditions, or at least, many centuries of deeply ingrained customs.
Think about how powerful that pull of tradition of inherited belief systems can be in our own lives.
Absolutely. And this wasn't about Peter being sinful in holding those traditions originally.
Oh, not at all. These were beliefs that were actually good in their original context, designed by God to set his people apart for a purpose.
But now,
But now, in the unfolding of God's bigger redemptive plan, these very traditions stood in the way of God's new, broader work, which was to extend salvation to all humanity. Peter had to somehow reconcile his past understanding with this radical new revelation.
that's a huge mental and spiritual shift.
It is. And to contextualize this even further, this moment is such a profound illustration of how sometimes our most deeply held customs or belief systems, even ones that were once divinely instituted or culturally beneficial, sometimes they need to be ejected or at least seriously reevaluated when God wants to do a new thing.
It's not about abandoning core truth, then.
No, it's about discerning traditions that, while perhaps once useful, might now inadvertently hinder God's broader, more expansive work. It's about flexibility within faithfulness.
And we see that struggle later, too, right?
Absolutely. The debates and discussions that would later unfold at the Jerusalem Council, which we read about just a few chapters later in Acts 15, they further exemplify this very point. The early church had to grapple with what it truly meant to integrate Gentile converts without imposing the full weight of Jewish law.
It's like an ongoing process.
It's a continuous process, yes, of discerning what truly aligns with God's evolving purposes in history, and not clinging desperately to old wineskins when new wine's being poured out.
Okay, now here's where the orchestration truly shines, isn't it? Where the separate threads of this divine tapestry start weaving together.
This is the convergence point.
While Peter was still perplexed by his vision, trying to figure out what on earth this revolutionary message about clean and unclean could possibly mean.
Right, when he's scratching his head.
Cornelius's men, who had traveled through the night, arrive at his very gate in Joppa at that exact moment.
The timing is just impeccable.
And then the Holy Spirit, with breathtaking precision, speaks directly to Peter, cuts through all his confusion and tradition with this irresistible, undeniable instruction.
What does the Spirit say?
Behold, 3 men are looking for you. Rise and go down and accompany them without hesitation, for I have sent them.
Wow. Without hesitation, I have sent them.
Yeah. The precise, almost cinematic timing here is just breathtaking. This was clearly no coincidence. It was a divinely choreographed appointment that absolutely defies human planning.
And the Holy Spirit's clear, irresistible instruction. It left Peter no room for doubt, did it? No room for further deliberation.
It seems not. It cut right through centuries of tradition, through Peter's personal discomfort, through any logical argument he might have made against it.
It was just a direct, undeniable call to action. It really showcases God's sovereign control over seemingly random events and his ability to align distant circumstances perfectly for his purposes.
And Peter obeyed. Despite his, lingering confusion and those deeply ingrained Jewish customs, he goes down and what does he do?
He invites the Gentiles into his home.
Which was itself against tradition. And not only that, but the sources point out he even took some of the brothers from Joppa with him, maybe 6 of them.
That detail is incredibly important, isn't it?
Why is that?
Because these Jewish believers would serve as crucial witnesses to everything that was about to unfold in Caesarea. They could validate this groundbreaking event to the, frankly, skeptical church leaders back in Jerusalem later on.
Yeah.
Peter knew this was big.
Ah, okay, so he brought back up, essentially, witnesses.
You can say that. It's truly remarkable that Peter brought witnesses, knowing the monumental shift this encounter represented. And then, when they arrive in Caesarea,
Cornelius is ready.
he's not only expecting them, just as the angel instructed, but he had proactively called together his relatives and his close friends.
So it wasn't just a one-on-one meeting.
Not at all. This wasn't just a private meeting with a few interested individuals. It was a gathering, a mini congregation, already assembled by divine anticipation.
And this reveals a crucial principle, doesn't it, about how God often orchestrates growth. Cornelius, being this local guy, man of means, connections, one source says he knew everybody in Caesarea.
He wasn't just a passive seeker.
No, he was a connector. He was eager to share what he anticipated, understanding the profound nature of what was about to happen. Peter walks into a room where there could have very easily been 30 or 40 people gathered.
Not by a church flyer or some big campaign.
But for no other reason than Cornelius invited them because of his personal anticipation of God's work. It just highlights the profound power of one person's openness and their relational network, creating this kind of exponential impact.
An impact that maybe traditional methods might never achieve. The sheer brilliance of this design is just so evident in Cornelius's role. He wasn't simply a recipient of revelation, he was an active participant in its propagation.
He kind of instinctively knew to share it.
He did.
Yeah.
He intuitively understood the profound nature of what was happening and instinctively wanted to share that potentially transformative experience with his entire network. This is powerful relational evangelism in action, long before we slapped a label on it.
Yeah, long before it became a church growth strategy.
Exactly. It's about an individual's personal journey becoming a catalyst for community transformation. It shows how God leverages existing relationships for kingdom expansion.
Okay, so we've really unpacked this ancient blueprint. Now let's fast forward to today. What does this incredible story of Peter and Cornelius mean for us right now?
Yeah, how does this translate?
Because this isn't just history, right? It's like a masterclass in how God orchestrates growth, both spiritually in individuals and numerically in his kingdom, even in our contemporary lives.
And that narrative really serves as such a powerful illustration, one that transcends time and culture. It demonstrates how truly effective growth often comes not through, say, elaborate programs or marketing strategies.
Or even the most dynamic preaching sometimes.
Right. But through individuals who are not only hungry for God themselves, but are then eagerly compelled to bring others along on their spiritual journey. It's fundamentally about aligning with what God is already doing in the hearts and lives of people around us.
And our sources really emphasize that powerful truth. The growth of God's kingdom relies heavily on personal invitation and what we often call relational evangelism.
Just like Cornelius did instinctively.
Exactly. Gathering his relatives and close friends. It's not primarily about implementing the right strategy or meticulously following some set formula, which I think we all, in our earnestness, often try to do in our churches or ministries. We're always looking for the next big program.
That's such a powerful point, and it brings to mind the pastor's reflection shared in the sources, particularly his really candid experience growing a youth group.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
When he was just 23, he managed to grow this youth group from about 12 kids to a really vibrant 40, 60 young people. And at the time, he admits he genuinely thought, I've got this figured out.
He thought it was his strategy.
He attributed the growth to his own efforts, his ingenious strategies, whatever they were.
Yeah.
But years later, with the clarity of hindsight and, frankly, humility,
Yeah.
he candidly admitted, I had not a clue. He realized that the true, sustained growth was actually God's timing
Yeah.
and had very little to do with his own abilities or perceived genius.
Wow. That's humbling.
It really highlights the vital distinction between our well-intentioned human effort and the profound, often mysterious reality of divine orchestration. It shifts the focus from our competence to God's providence.
It's incredibly relatable, though, isn't it? That feeling of trying everything, working so hard, pouring all our energy into a project or a ministry.
Only to hit a wall, maybe.
Yeah, or just realizing that the breakthrough, the real transformation, isn't always directly proportional to our effort alone. It's about recognizing God's timing, his unique methods, and ultimately his sovereign hand. It's
Yeah.
humbling, like you said, but also kind of freeing.
It is freeing. And the profound truth here seems to be that kingdom growth often isn't the result of grand strategies or even charismatic leadership, but more like a ripple effect from a single, unassuming individual's genuine surrender.
Like a small stone dropped in a pond.
Exactly. And this is beautifully illustrated by what the sources call the Brittany moment.
Okay, the Brittany moment, what happened?
This pivotal turning point occurred in a youth group in Lakeville, which the source notes is a tiny town, only 600 people. The pastor recounts how the turning point didn't come from new programs or a particularly dynamic sermon he preached.
To what was it?
Instead, it stemmed from one young girl's decision to genuinely worship God. Brittany, just a 15-year-old girl, had this quiet, internal click moment during worship, an instant where something within her said, I'm going to worship God.
Not a big public display.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
A personal, internal surrender. But that small act of surrender, that deeply personal moment of genuine worship, created what the sources describe as a spiritual break.
A break in the atmosphere.
Kind of. And slowly but surely, that internal shift began to subtly, then palpably, change the atmosphere of the entire group, eventually leading to significant organic growth.
And the pastor's role in that specific moment?
He realized his direct involvement in that specific pivotal moment was zero. He couldn't plan it, he couldn't preach it into existence, he couldn't program it. It was, as he put it simply, God stepping in and her listening. It powerfully emphasizes that divine orchestration often begins with a quiet, personal, and utterly unheralded response to God's presence, from which a new spiritual current just begins to flow.
That's incredible. It reminds me of another story in the sources about unlikely connection.
Ah, yes. Which leads us to another powerful principle God employs. He uses the most unlikely circumstances to draw people to himself.
Tell us the free chili story.
Right. The sources share this remarkable and really heartwarming story of a church offering free chili suppers on Sunday nights. They strategically located them near some homeless shelters in South Bend.
Okay, just simple hospitality.
Simple hospitality, yeah. One evening, the pastor's son and some others invited 3 teenagers they encountered at the local library, described as typical kids hanging out on their bike trying to get in trouble.
Not exactly seeking spiritual enlightenment.
Probably not. These teenagers were initially drawn purely by the simple promise of free food and maybe a good time. They knew absolutely nothing about Jesus or church, and probably cared even less at that point.
Just kids looking for something to do and a free meal.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Despite their very basic initial motivations, 2 or 3 of these teenagers actually came back to the church suppers.
Okay, that's interesting.
And crucially, they didn't come alone. They brought their friends, illustrating that powerful, organic ripple effect again, starting with something seemingly insignificant.
Free chili. It shows us, doesn't it, that we might be looking for spiritual giants or grand evangelistic crusades.
Yeah, we look for the big dramatic thing.
But God is often working through the most simple invitations and genuine, uncomplicated connections. The offer of free chili was just a casual act of kindness, of hospitality.
It's truly striking, isn't it? It demonstrates that God isn't limited by our methods or our preconceived notions of what church should look like, or even our understanding of what constitutes an effective outreach strategy.
He works outside our boxes.
He works through authenticity, through humble hospitality, and meets people exactly where they are. He uses common, everyday interactions, like sharing a bowl of chili to plant seeds that can lead to unexpected and, yes, exponential growth.
So the pastor's willingness to host the supper was key.
It was the catalyst, yes. But it was the genuine relational connection, the unexpected sense of welcome and maybe belonging that the teenagers found that likely made the real lasting difference.
Now, our sources also offer a really candid and I think relatable perspective from the pastor himself. He acknowledges his own significant limitations in this whole process of church growth and outreach.
Yeah, his honesty is quite refreshing.
He admits his introverted nature makes connecting with his immediate neighbors pretty challenging. He states, with remarkable honesty, in 10 years, I've probably spoken to them maybe each one 100 words.
Wow, that's very frank.
And he readily admits, I'm not the person that's going to go next door and chat them up.
Which prompts a really important question for each of us listening right now. What is our unique role in this grand divine orchestration?
Because we're not all the same.
Exactly. The pastor's honesty highlights a critical truth. Not everyone is naturally a Cornelius type, someone inherently wired for broad, immediate connection and effortless invitation.
Some of us are more like Peter before the vision, maybe, stuck in our ways, or just introverted.
Some, like the pastor himself, are not put together that way, as he plainly states. Yet, despite this, they still have an incredibly crucial and equally vital role to play.
So what does he say his role is then, if not the chat them up guy?
Well, he emphasizes that while he has diligently attended seminars, devoured books, and taken classes specifically on church growth strategies, all the things you're supposed to do,
right.
He can honestly say, I don't know how to grow this church. That's a huge admission for a pastor.
It really is.
But then he recognizes a profound truth. I do know the one who does. And, crucially, he encourages collective prayer for God to orchestrate, essentially shifting the burden from his own shoulders to God's sovereign capability.
That's a powerful posture of humility and dependence.
It really is.
Okay, so what does this entire journey, from the ancient, divinely orchestrated meeting of Peter and Cornelius all the way to these deeply personal modern anecdotes, What does it mean for you, listening right now? How can you specifically participate in this grand divine orchestration that's still happening all around us every single day?
Yeah, that's the critical question. How can we practically align ourselves with what God is already doing in the world? How do we cultivate a deeper sensitivity to the Holy Spirit's leading?
It's about understanding our part, right? However small it seems.
It's about understanding that our individual part, however seemingly small or unconventional, is absolutely vital within his magnificent overarching plan.
So what's step one? Where do we start?
Well, first, just like Cornelius, we need to intentionally cultivate our own spiritual hunger. The sources are incredibly clear on this foundational point.
It starts with us.
It starts with us. We need to be people continually seeking God, generous in our giving, and faithful in prayer. This isn't just a nice suggestion. It's the foundational posture, the essential soil, that creates fertile ground for God to work in us and through us,
So it's about being ready, being responsive.
making ourselves available for that divine interaction. And what does that look like day to day? Maybe it's just setting aside a specific time, however brief, for prayer each morning.
Or maybe actively looking for opportunities to give generously from what you have.
Or simply spending a few minutes quietly reflecting on a spiritual truth. It's about nurturing that interconnection.
Okay, so cultivate hunger. What's next?
Second, we need to be profoundly open to divine appointments. God, in his orchestration, may lead us to unexpected people or places, or maybe prompt us with subtle nudges that seem completely out of the blue.
The Goddidances.
Exactly. Our role isn't to control the outcome or force an interaction. It's simply to be willing and obedient, even when it challenges our comfort zones or deeply held preconceived notions.
So it means paying attention more.
Developing a heightened awareness in your daily life. Looking for those subtle connections, those unexpected conversations, those moments when maybe a stranger needs a simple act of kindness, or when an opportunity arises that just seems to have a divine fingerprint on it.
And not dismissing them as just random.
Right. Viewing them as potential invitations from the divine choreographer.
And building directly on that openness, the sources suggest we should specifically pray for God to connect us with Cornelius-type individuals.
Ah, yes. Explain that a bit more.
These are those really special people who not only have that genuine hunger for God themselves, but they also possess that unique personality and the existing relational connections to naturally bring others along into that spiritual journey.
The natural connectors, the bridge builders.
Exactly. Think about them. Those people who just effortlessly connect, who are natural bridges in their social circles, their workplaces, their families.
And their significance in kingdom growth.
Yeah.
It really can't be overstated, can it?
Seems not. These individuals can indeed be catalysts for exponential growth, creating that powerful ripple effect far beyond what maybe a single evangelist or a structured program could achieve on its own.
Yeah, the pastor shared that profound insight he learned in his church growth studies. There are always those few key people that just bring people.
Whether it's their bar buddies or coworkers
Or their entire family even. Identifying and intentionally praying for these natural connectors in your own life, in your workplace, your social circles, your community, that can truly unlock new, unexpected avenues for God's transformative work.
multiplying impact in ways you hadn't even imagined.
Precisely.
It's also incredibly crucial, though, to understand your unique role in this grand design. We've touched on this, but it bears repeating.
Yes. Because not everyone is called to be a public evangelist, right?
Yeah.
Someone who naturally invites dozens of people or preaches to crowds.
But as our sources powerfully emphasize, everyone can play a role in God's plan. Every single person.
And while we all have a part to play, ultimately, as the sources remind us, it is God who orchestrates the growth.
Our specific role then is
To be faithful in our witness, genuine in our love, and persistent in our prayers, it echoes the Apostle Paul's timeless words in 1 Corinthians 3:6. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth.
our effort matters, but the increase, the real breakthrough, belongs to God.
Absolutely. Which means we absolutely should not compare our abilities, our natural inclinations, or our personality types to others. That's a trap.
So the invitation is
The invitation is to discern how you are uniquely wired to contribute to this divine orchestration. Maybe your role is quiet, fervent prayer that moves mountains in the unseen realm.
or humble, consistent service behind the scenes.
Or perhaps it's simply building genuine, authentic relationships. Like the pastor who acknowledges he's not the chat them up type,
Yeah.
but surely cultivates depth with those he does interact with.
Every contribution matters.
Every single contribution, when offered in obedience and divinely orchestrated, matters immensely and plays an indispensable part in God's larger design.
Okay, lastly, and this is a truly significant and, let's be honest, often challenging point.
Uh-huh.
We need to be willing to set aside traditions. Just as Peter, with his deeply ingrained Jewish dietary restrictions and cultural norms, had to overcome centuries of ingrained habits to effectively reach Cornelius and the
That
Gentiles.
was a huge hurdle for him.
Huge. We too may need to let go of certain cultural or religious norms in our own lives or communities to effectively connect with those God is calling to himself.
And this raises a powerful, maybe even uncomfortable self-reflective question for you, listening right now.
What's the question?
Are there traditions, whether they're personal habits, cultural expectations, or even deeply ingrained religious norms, in your own life or maybe within your community that might inadvertently hinder your ability to connect with diverse individuals?
Or maybe they're preventing you from embracing new ways God might be moving.
Exactly. Ways that feel uncomfortable simply because they don't fit your established patterns or expectations.
So the challenge is,
The challenge is to critically examine these traditions, not for the sake of simply changing things, but for the sake of greater alignment with God's broader, more transformative, and often revolutionary work in the world today. It requires an honest look at what we hold dear and asking, does this serve as a bridge or a barrier?
that takes courage. Okay, so
Yep.
this deep dive, it's shown us unequivocally, I think, that divine orchestration isn't some mystical far-off concept reserved exclusively for biblical heroes or ancient prophets.
No, it's happening now.
It's a dynamic, ongoing, deeply personal process where God consistently uses ordinary people like you and me and often employs what appear to be chaotic, random circumstances to achieve his extraordinary, world-changing purposes.
He is actively working right now, this very moment, to transform lives, to break down centuries-old barriers, and to expand his kingdom in ways that are often utterly surprising and truly amazing.
To connect this to the bigger picture, then, it's really about embracing a profound trust, isn't it?
Trust in what, specifically?
Trust that the very same God who meticulously choreographed Peter and Cornelius' meeting, who moved through a simple act of worship by a teenage girl or a bowl of chili offered in kindness.
That same God is still actively transforming lives, breaking down barriers, and expanding his kingdom in the precise, unexpected, and often miraculous ways that continue to surprise and amaze us.
He's using the hungry hearts and the obedient, often uncomfortable steps of everyday individuals to accomplish his grand designs.
So what does all of this mean for you as you move forward from this deep dive today? What's the takeaway?
Well, I think it's a compelling call to embrace both a spiritual posture of hunger, continually seeking God with real intentionality, and an active stance of prayer and profound openness to his leading.
Even when it takes you to unfamiliar places.
Yes. Or asks you to challenge your own long-held traditions. It's both internal posture and external action.
Which raises a final powerful question for you to maybe mull over long after this deep dive concludes.
Leave us with that question.
How might intentionally praying for divine orchestration in your own specific sphere of influence, maybe it's in your family dynamics, your workplace interactions, or within your broader community, how might that unlock unexpected connections and breakthroughs that you hadn't even remotely imagined?
And maybe even more challenging.
And perhaps even more challenging. What specific traditions or deeply ingrained assumptions might you need to re-examine, or perhaps even be willing to set aside to be fully open to God's new thing in your own life and through your life?